Welcome to the first masterclass on Slavoj Žižek's core philosophy. In this first episode, starting with foundations, we'll try to explore some of the central ideas used in Žižek's major works. In order to start this investigation, we'll start with the foundations of the difference between multiplicity and singularity. As the concepts may intuitively reveal, multiplicity tries to conceive of our knowledge and reality as a type of web or network of differences which cannot be integrated into one totality. There are just multiplicities of differences. Whereas singularity, in the old traditional metaphysical concept, tried to represent a type of unified totality or singular whole. In Žižek's work, singularity is much more paradoxical and much more counterintuitive, but something which appears as a singular dimension internal to the functioning of a symbolic order. In other words, you could conceive of it as not just a reality of networks and webs, but a reality of networks and webs which have a type of central gravitational pull. And this all operates internal to our symbolism, bringing us to an important dimension of a type of constructivism which appears in Žižek, which is not a radical constructivism which you might see in many postmodern understandings of constructivism, where basically anything is possible and there are no limits on our possibility to construct otherness. Rather, constructivism is set in relationship to fundamental limitations of otherness as such. In other words, we cannot construct anything we want, but we have to learn what we can construct in relationship to inherent impossibilities which are features of the symbolic order. And this brings us to another difference connected to the others of the difference between reality and the real. For Žižek, reality is just physical reality out there, something that we might almost naively and spontaneously conceptualize as reality. In contrast to this notion, the real is something which functions internal to a symbolic order, and may even be said to be something which is almost transhistorical or ahistorical. The best definition of the real, or at least one good definition of the real, would be that little piece of the present moment which resists your desire. Most importantly, in Žižek's concept of the real, it is non-substantial. It is not a physical thing. It is not a substantial entity, but rather an inherent impossibility internal to symbolism. In order to come to these conclusions and in order to elaborate on these foundations, Žižek relies on tools of phenomenology and psychoanalysis and tries to wed them in their historical genesis and their consequences for our understanding. In phenomenology, we don't start our analysis with the physical world out there. Instead, we start our analysis with sensation. Sensation in terms of sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. From sensation, we build up a way in which humans phenomenally experience reality. This goes from sensation to perception, which is the way we try to organize all of our senses into a unified conception of the world, and understanding, which is much more on the level of trying to meta-reflect on all of the sense and perceptive data that we can accumulate and integrate into our symbolic order. Psychoanalysis tries to build on and add to phenomenology by paying very close attention and taking very seriously experiential problems of desire and love, which have, in the psychoanalytic tradition, a non-experiential dimension. In other words, the problems of desire and love are conceptualized not as things that emerge because of our experience, but something almost inherently non-experiential about our experience, which is another way of conceptualizing the unconscious. The central concept that appears in Žižek's work, which can be logically derived from both phenomenology and psychoanalysis, is the concept of the object petit a. The object petit a, or the small object, is inherently a partial object, which means that it is a small or fragmentary or little stimulus or cause of a subject's desire, and which almost unconsciously holds together a whole network of identity associations which the subject relies on for stability across time. You might think of the object petit a as deeply connected and derived from ultimately Freudian foundations of the oral, the anal, and the genital stages of infantile sexual development. This concept, though, gets much more further elaboration in, obviously, the work of Jacques Lacan and then the work of Žižek. The reason why this concept holds such an important and special place in Žižek's work is because it is, in some sense, a figure of lack and excess in our experiences of desire. If you consult your most intimate experiences of feeling a lack or feeling a void in your heart, or alternatively, feeling an excess, feeling almost too much desire, this is, according to Žižek, the location of the object petit a and also the real. And that's why, at least in our first encounters with the object petit a in our development, we experience the real as a negativity, because this partial object is difficult, or we start to conceptualize impossible to integrate into our normal sense experience and also into the normal functioning of our understanding. Nonetheless, this whole apparatus and relationship is crucial to understand our emotions and our motion in history. The ultimate solution to the problems of desire, the object petit a, and the real, is found in a type of motion which Žižek posits as undeconstructible, the undeconstructible non-psychical drive. And in much of his work, he clearly situates this notion of the undeconstructible drive as against many of the epistemological horizons of postmodernism. He posits this location of the drive as a motion which persists even beyond the will. It's not that we reach the will to power, say, and then we are at the ontological climax of existence. According to Žižek, there is a unconscious, undead motion, which is in some sense the location of where we experience immortality. And according to Žižek, and in a lot of Žižek's work, this undead drive, this persistence which goes beyond and out of control of even our will, is an important incorporation to a reinterpretation of historical philosophy, sexuality, capitalism, politics, science, and religion. And this is what a lot of Žižek's work is ultimately about, is using this horizon, the ontology of the drive, its structure and its nature, to reinterpret how we understand all of these epistemological structures inherent to the historical process. I hope that that was a good overview to the foundations that appear in Žižek's work and gives you an added tool to approach some of his most difficult writings with a new perspective. Thanks for watching, and thanks for listening.